For me, the thing that I hear on the ground a lot is the constant mistrust of government from folks, from community members. And I feel that something like guaranteed income, that is one way that government could potentially build that trust back. Because you're basically saying, we trust you with this money that you're going to do what's best for you. And I feel like government it does not have the best track record of doing that. It is very much, we're going to tell you what to do because we know what's best for you. It would go a long way to building that trust back.
Welcome to Left Coast Podcast, where we go behind the news in California to talk about what's happening in our state with a progressive lens. Today, we're interviewing Michael Tubbs, candidate for lieutenant governor here in California and former mayor of Stockton. We talk about his story growing up in poverty, then going on to become the mayor of a major American city, onto his work today in reducing poverty across the state of California. Michael also famously ran the first mayor guaranteed income program in the country. And we'll be talking about some of his ideas for California. But before that, we welcome Ben Mendoza, who is active in San Diego politics, someone who volunteers for a lot of different causes and candidates, and currently works for a Working Families Party champion, San Diego Council member Sean Rivera. Welcome, Ben. Thanks so much for joining us here today. Can you just tell us a little bit about who you are?
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me, Jane. So spent about 10 years working with students before transitioning to working in local government for Councilmember Sean Rivera back in December 2020. And since then, I've been so privileged to work for Councilmember Rivera in the community that I both live in and get to serve, and been so lucky to be able to do that.
So you're down in San Diego, which historically was the center of Republican politics.
Yeah, and we've definitely seen a shift over the last few years, especially around both the city council and the board of supervisors, much more blue.
Let's talk about that because, a lot of people, when they think of California, they think of far left, super blue, right? And in California today, we have a supermajority of Democrats in both houses of the state, and a Democrat occupies every single statewide office in California. But in the 1990s, we were electing Republicans to governor. In fact, Ronald Reagan came out of California. Richard Nixon came out of California. And some of the most anti-immigrant and tough on crime legislation, whether it's 3 strikes you're out or Prop 187, Prop 209, also came out of state of California. So the shift that you have witnessed in San Diego is something that we've been seeing across the state. And now we're getting to a year where we're just seeing a lot of change in politics, from the election of Katie Wilson in Seattle and Zohran Mamdani in New York, and a blue wave across the country. What is it that you're seeing when you're on the ground in the community? What are people hungry for? How are you feeling about this moment right now?
I mean, we were all watching Mamdani's speech live, and I was literally getting chills just watching it together with so many other folks who I legitimately felt like collectively we were resonating with a lot of the words that he was speaking about, as it related to just so many things, that he was able to weave so much messaging about not giving up against this giant corporate machine, and not having to give in to just so much. And I just felt like a lot of folks that I've talked to feel like they just felt so lost in not having a place to go. And I felt like that night, there was just so many people. I felt like so many people found their home that night and they found a place to go. I just feel like there's a lot of momentum building. The fact that the word like democratic socialist it's still a taboo for some, but like that it is a little less taboo thanks to, in part to him. That is amazing to me. That's a testament to how far I think we've come. And I think that's great.
So let's talk about this upcoming election. So we've had these huge wins in New York, Seattle, even New Jersey, Virginia. As we head into the new year, we're seeing members of Congress announce retirements, from Nancy Pelosi in California to Jerry Nadler in New York. We're also seeing senators like Chuck Grassley, who is 92 years old, file for re-election to Senate. And then here, later on today, we're going to be listening in to an interview with Michael Tubbs, who is, I think, the youngest candidate running for lieutenant governor, and some by like a decade or more versus the other opponents. What do you think about this time? Like, what do you think about the next generation of leadership? And what do you think of this moment?
I'm just so over the status quo. I am so over just seeing the same old, same old. Like, that is literally why I got out of working in higher education. I loved my job working in higher ed. And the whole reason I made a career shift is that I was so done with maintaining the status quo, having to watch my students go into debt, having to watch my students basically getting set up to fail. Like, that was so frustrating to me. That, and then volunteering, there's just so many systems that I could not unsee a lot of those things. And then because of that, I just needed to get involved.
So Ben, we're heading into 2026. And I think a lot of us are tired of hearing this is the election of our lifetime. And yet elections are this incredible opportunity for us to make generational change, to change the course of our country, our community, our city, our state. Like, what is it that we have to see next year? Like, what has to be different at this time? Like, what are we fighting for? And what do you want to see in 2026?
I've been this person before that says, like, we can no longer accept the lesser of two evils. And I'm saying that now. Like, I'm so done with that like, we can no longer accept that. And that is one conversation that I've literally had here at home right now with my mom, because we've been talking about the next presidential race, and one of the candidates that she's talking about is Governor Newsom, and she's like, he would make the perfect president. And I very much disagree, and had to have a conversation with her on why I disagreed with her about that. And she very much said, well, he's the better of the other option, which would potentially be Vance. And I said, that is not good enough. There has to be other options. And that is where I'm at, where we can no longer accept that, like, these are our options. I will no longer accept that. And I think that there's a lot of people that are finally reaching that point that is no longer an option. And I think we're seeing that in races across the country right now, that folks are no longer going to accept that as an option. And I think candidates are now winning on that platform, that they can win now. And I'm there. I was one of those people that were like, yeah, I think we just need to just accept that. But now I'm not there. And I am ready to go full throttle with getting folks who are really standing up for what they believe in. As somebody who does get involved with political campaigns and gives their all, like, I'm ready to do that for the next candidate that I believe in.
So let's talk about this upcoming governor's race. It has been a cascading cast of characters. There isn't a heavyweight that's coming in with a lot of endorsements and money, as we've seen in past races with Gavin Newsom or Jerry Brown or even Arnold Schwarzenegger. This race is wide open. It's one of the widest open races I've seen. And new people are declaring every day. Just this month, Tom Steyer has endorsed, Congressman Eric Swalwell has endorsed. What do you think about this ever-expanding field of gubernatorial candidates? And what are some of your hopes?
Honestly, I want a refreshing take, and somebody who will just give straight answers. And I say straight answers as something that I struggle to do, is just say it from the heart and say what they feel, say what they mean, and talk like a real person.
So we talk a lot about the governor's race, but there's a race that people pay a little less attention to, but is just as important, and that's the lieutenant governor's seat. This is the person who is second in line to that office, and it's the place where actually a lot of elected officials begin their path. Governor Newsom was lieutenant governor first, and it's a place where we can build a bench for new leadership. What's your take on this race?
Yeah, I've had the chance to hear Michael speak, and I think he's a real one. I love his energy. Some of the ideas he's put forward, like guaranteed income, I think it gives people an even playing field, which I agree with. And as somebody who considers themselves on the younger end, seeing somebody in their 30s pursue something like lieutenant governor, I think that makes me excited that somebody is in a race like that they're running a political campaign at that level. That makes me excited, and it makes me want to get involved.
In my 20 so years of following politics, I can't remember the last time someone in the 30s as a serious candidate ran for this office. And that's what I find really exciting about Michael's candidacy is seeing someone in a different generation be bold enough to run for the statewide seat. Let's talk about basic income. I have to be honest, I've not always been 100% on board with basic income because I always thought it was maybe a cheap way out of the fact that we are automating jobs away and getting rid of a lot of jobs. But as I talked to Michael more about it, I learned a whole lot. Like, one, basic income is something that helps people who are working because unfortunately, one job isn't enough to cover rent and food. But two, it's hard to apply for a better job that you're qualified for if you can't take time off to apply for those jobs. And so, one of the outcomes that he learned in Stockton was that people were able to take time off to apply for better jobs and then get them because they didn't get paid time off from the existing job that they had. So, basic income just gave folks all this flexibility, gave working people all this flexibility to improve their lives.
That brings up for me a lot of the conversations we were having here in San Diego when we were talking to workers around our minimum wage fight. In the summer, working with Councilmember Elo Rivera to raise the minimum wage for hotel and tourism workers to $25 an hour. And we would talk directly to hotel workers about the struggle it was to just survive in San Diego, which is so expensive, to survive on $25 an hour, not only themselves, but to provide for an entire family. One job isn't enough. And that was a frequent thing we heard from them. So I can only imagine what a guaranteed income would do for those families. That would probably elevate and help support their families so much. I would love to see something like that in San Diego.
Yeah. You know, the one thing about minimum wage, I got to work on minimum wage in San Francisco 10 years ago. This was when we raised the minimum wage to $15 an hour. And we were the first city in California to do so. And when we did this work, it was just so obvious that we weren't lifting people into the middle class with this raise. We were just lifting people out of destitution, right? And just, listening to Michael talk about basic income as being a security foundation for working people who already had jobs, just to be able to have some breathing room, knowing that they're going to make rent, but that their kids are going to get the things that they need. Or, like I said, they could have time to look for another job was a really incredible thing to hear about, and one that we don't hear enough about. And then just comes back to your point, we need bigger and bolder ideas in 2026. We're done with the same old, same old.
For me, the thing that I hear on the ground a lot is the constant mistrust of government from folks, from community members. And I feel that something like guaranteed income, that is one way that government could potentially build that trust back. Because you're basically saying, we trust you with this money that you're going to do what's best for you. And I feel like government it does not have the best track record of doing that. It is very much, we're going to tell you what to do because we know what's best for you. It would go a long way to building that trust back.
Yeah, that was the other incredible outcome of this program was when they actually studied how people spent the additional money. Most people didn't throw it away on luxury items and fashion, which is kind of this trope that we hear often in the news. People spent it on food. People spent it on rent. People spent it on real things that they needed. And it just, again, comes back to what you talked about earlier when you are working with students in higher education, is that we're hitting a point when most Americans can't afford basic necessities anymore in this country. And we're seeing a shrinking of the middle class. And so, what is it that you're hoping to see in 2026? You mentioned you've been interviewing folks. Who have you been interviewing?
Hotel workers, folks in the tourism industry. And something that kept coming up for them was basically paying for basic necessities like groceries, diapers, things for their families, providing those basic necessities. So when things like SNAP benefits came up and those were threatened, I know that was something else that threatens a lot of folks, not just locally, but I know nationally too.
Ben, you spent a lot of time on the ground, and clearly we know folks that voted for Trump back in 2024.
Mhm.
Are you hearing any shift now that people are actually seeing what a Trump presidency looks like? People are seeing the ICE raids. People are seeing SNAP get cut. What are people saying?
From what I'm seeing, I think the ICE raids, especially when they came into one of our more affluent whiter neighborhoods. I think that was like a lightning rod for a lot of folks in San Diego. And it was kind of woke a lot of people up, I think, especially just on all sides of the political spectrum, whether folks voted for Trump or Kamala. Folks were not okay with it, regardless of what political side you were on, because of how beloved, especially the restaurant that was raided was in May 2025. Buona Forchetta Italian restaurant was raided by ICE and did not give a notice. ICE showed up in full military gear and they raided the restaurant. It was during, I think, a Friday evening during dinner hour and full service. So it was a full packed restaurant. And as they were raiding the place, folks in the neighborhood started coming out and were attempting to stop ICE. They were taking some of the staff members, some of the cooks in the back. And as they were doing that, neighbors were trying to get involved. ICE then started intervening with folks in the neighborhood. Tear gas was going off. And it really, I think, created a spark in San Diego. And from that, it really pissed a lot of people off, again, on all sides of the political spectrum.
Do you think folks are ready to vote and vote for something different now?
I would say yes. A majority, I would say yes, are ready to vote for something different.
What are you hearing from friends?
Folks are ready for a change. I'm not sure that they're really ready to articulate what that change is just yet, but I know that folks are feeling apathetic to a lot of the major political parties. They're wanting to find something else. That is, I think, that the major thing that I'm hearing and I'm feeling from folks is they're like kind of drifting right now, looking for something else. And that's why I feel like a lot of these major events that are happening throughout the country, again, like Mamdani and the various elections throughout our country that happened this past November, I think that that's why there's so much resonance that's happening with folks right now.
Ben, thanks so much for joining me today and helping to introduce our conversation with Michael Tubbs that is coming on next. It really was so great to have you. And it's also great to have the perspective of someone down in SoCal and San Diego join us.
Thank you so much for having me, Jane.
So that was a talk with one of our organizers down in San Diego, Ben Mendoza. And now we're going to go into our conversation with Lieutenant Governor candidate and former Stockton Mayor, Michael Tubbs. Michael, welcome to Left Coast. This is actually our first in-person recording. So this is a bit of an experiment for us.
I'm used to being the first mayor, first to do guaranteed income, first everything. So no problem. Love to be
cool. Cool. So actually, just so our audience knows, we've known each other for quite a while. I actually attended your graduation at Stanford. I got to speak at your programmatic graduation. And I still remember to me as a senior and telling me that you're running for Stockton City Council and being totally blown away that someone so young was already thinking about running for office. First of all, tell our listeners a little bit about you, where you grew up, and, a little about your story.
That seems so long ago, right? College graduation. Born and raised in Stockton, California, South Stockton. Like the south part of most cities is a place that had concentrated poverty, concentrated violence, and also was not a lot of opportunity. My mother, amazing woman, she was 16 when she was pregnant with me. So incredibly young and single because my father was and still is incarcerated. A lot of things I fight for now, a lot of things I worked on when I was elected, I first lived in the experience. I think that's why I've always been willing to take risks and to be bold and to really fight for more speed and urgency, because I just remember vividly what it's like to be hungry, or remember vividly watching my mom go to check cashing places to borrow money to pay for bills, knowing she'd have to pay so much more because of interest. I remember going to schools where it felt like there wasn't much expectation for us to be anything. Like we're just there until we're 18 to go and continue being in this cycle of poverty. But it wasn't all doom and gloom. I had amazing mentors, had an amazing family unit. My church community was very helpful as well. And through that, I was able to sort of navigate that very challenging and sometimes racist public school system to become the first one in my family to go to college at Stanford, which is where I was able to meet folks like you and was able to see that, wow, there is a path to make change, that the world doesn't have to be the way it is, and that sort of you could exercise leadership, you could be part of the process, and the rest is history.
And let me just push you a little bit more there. Like, why Stockton City Council? One, you didn't have role models that ran for local office. And two, even at Stanford, local office is not something people push. I mean, people are like, run for Congress, become governor. But why your local city council?
Yeah, well, in high school, my big community service activity was I was chair of the Youth Advisory Commission. So I spent my sophomore and junior year going to city council meetings and presenting to the council about what was happening with young people. And what I saw just shook me to my core was that a lot of the people up there were not smarter than me at 16. I don't think they understood the staff report. I was like, well, I don't think they read, or I don't think they care. And that was the first time I realized that government wasn't just this impersonal force that was doing things to my community or to my family, but government was actually people, and people no different than you and I, and that people are what make government work. But I had no intention of running for government. I just had understanding of government. But then in college, I interned for President Obama, and my job was to work with mayors and councils. And while doing that, I saw how at a local level, folks were making things happen at a time, even then, federally, things weren't moving as quickly as I had hoped. And I remember doing research on the top 100 cities, and Cory Booker was mayor of Newark, New Jersey at the time. And Newark, New Jersey was below Stockton in terms of population. Stockton had 310,000 people. Newark had 300,000 people. And I was like, wait, Cory Booker occupies so much space in the political imagination. We're always thinking about Newark and how to help Mayor Booker. And Newark is smaller than Stockton, California, where I'm from. And I was like, oh my gosh, leadership matters. And maybe Stockton needs the right leaders. And at the same time, unfortunately, one of my first cousins, Donnell James, he was a victim of a homicide on Halloween. So it was really being in the White House, at the seat of power at Stanford, feeling quote unquote successful, while my family was back home dying literally, and also feeling like, how is this helping anyone? How is being at Stanford, how is being at the White House helping anyone, not but me, right? Like, I'm going to be fine, but what about my community back home? Yeah. So that's when in my 21-year-old angst and frankly anger, it was like apathy action or nihilism or doing something. I said, you know what, let me just try to run for city council. And it was because at the time the city had just declared bankruptcy, Stockton had, but no one was talking about like the moral bankruptcy that allowed us to have the highest per capita murder rate in the country. Like, it just wasn't even discussed. It was all about bankruptcy, bankruptcy, bankruptcy. And that just felt very personal. Like the city finances mattered, but for sure. And like young people who look like me from my community are being slaughtered. And there's not even the strategies, not even the plan. It's not even the discussion point about like how that important is for the city. So long answer. But that's why I went for city council. It was really because I was just motivated to figure out, okay, is this the best we can do? If not, then what can be better?
Yeah. Michael, the issue that actually got you the most attention nationally was you were the first mayor to introduce a mayor guaranteed basic income program in Stockton. You were featured in a documentary on HBO, Stockton on My Mind, which I watched during COVID. Thank you for providing me content. And also you have documentaries out, but it's something that has gotten you to speak across the country. So how did this come to you? And why did you decide to do it? And what did it really mean to you?
Yeah. When at Stanford, I took a class from Professor Claiborne Carson, who's
I did too.
Who's a nation's leading expert on Dr. King. So in the class, being a nerd, I did extra reading. So one of the books he suggested,
I didn't.
one of the books he suggested was Dr. King's last book, Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos, Our Community. And I remember reading that as a freshman. There's a passage where he says that in all his work in civil rights and worker rights and organizing, he said, we always try to solve for poverty by solving for everything else. He said, we try to solve it by solving for housing and for education and for healthcare. And then he said, all those things are important, but they're usually silo and pygmy efforts to address the issue of poverty, of lack of cash. And he said, I'm now convinced that the way to abolish poverty is the most direct. A guaranteed income paid at the national median income. And when I read that, I was just shocked because I had spent a lot of time doing Dr. King speeches every Dr. King day, winning Dr. King essay contests, studying Dr. King, but I never heard that part of his legacy. And the fact that was done right before he was murdered, I was interested. I said, well, why come no one talks about this? I was like, was there a vote on this idea? Did anyone pick this up? Why is this not part of the civil rights discourse today? So I put it in the back of my head. Like, I remember literally reading the book and saying like, wow, God, it'd be cool one day if I can be part of the conversation. Like, does this work? Like, will it work? And then 10 years later, mayor of Stockton, and it was one of my first meetings with my administration. And I just remember from being on city council and from being a teacher, and from doing ride-alongs with our police department, that so much of the issues we were facing in Stockton was poverty.
Yeah.
Right? Like we would be in police meeting in the same neighborhoods that had a lot of crime also had lots of poverty. Right? The same schools that had a lot of disciplinary issues and issues with sort of achievement as scored on standardized tests were also schools with concentrated poverty. And I was like, you guys, the main issue is really poverty. Like, we keep doing these other things, but until we figure out a solve for poverty, we'll be running in circles.
It's so crazy to me that we even debate this. Like, all the data shows the connection between poverty, crime, and violence. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to even figure it out. Like, if I need to make sure my kids are eating bread and there's poverty in my community, like, you have some options, right? And I'm not saying what option is the best one, but you got to feed your family.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I'm like, I tell people all the time, you could go to any community, never have been there before. You could be an alien from outer space. You could walk through a neighborhood, look at a school, and you could tell what the crime rate is. You can tell what the achievement rate is. And that's without even talking to a single person.
Yeah.
Because we know that poverty is concentrated in this country. We know poverty means lack of resources. We know that poverty, even the amenities, public amenities, look different than public amenities in places that don't have as much poverty. So anyway, I told my team, look, I want us to be the anti-poverty administration. And precisely because it's so personal to me, like just growing up in poverty, growing up with lack, growing up with scarcity, I just know what it does to folks' brains without even reading the research. And I read the research about how it changes like infant brain development, how cortisol levels are spiked, how it's literally a traumatic experience. It leads to complex PTSD because it's repeated and ongoing, and how it impacts relationships and relationship with parents, relationship with community. And I just feel like there's so much brilliance we lose in this country because we have so many folks who are trapped in poverty. And also the fact that it's not like, it's literally a policy choice. And just learning about how from our ability to organize unions or the floor we set in terms of minimum wage or just opportunity structure or our criminal legal system, like how all the choices we make as society impact whether people are going to be in poverty and stay in poverty, or people are going to not be in poverty, or people will be able to escape poverty. So I have to say, it was personal to me that no, we have to figure it out. And I think being the first Black mayor of Stockton, I think being the youngest mayor of a city of more than 100,000 people in this country's history, I just felt a huge responsibility to have government move differently, to have government make different bets on people, to have government have a different sort of mentality about what's the best way to help folks.
So what is basic income and why basic income?
So basic income, it's an idea almost as old as this country, which is fascinating to me. Like Thomas Paine in the late 1700s in the Agrarian Revolution talked about, hey, we're going to have this capitalist society without a floor for everyone. It's just not going to end up well for this country. We'll be in another revolution because folks need bread. Folks need to eat. Folks need to feel like their future is going to be better than their past. Then Dr. King picked it up, but you also had women from the National Welfare Organizing effort, Johnny Tillman and others, who actually met with Dr. King and talked about how the social safety net system, the bureaucracy, left so many holes, particularly for mothers and women of color, that actually just cash would be better. So they were the people that influenced Dr. King's thinking about the role of guaranteed income. So basically, it's an unrestricted cash to folks who do whatever they want with.
What's the biggest critique of this program?
The biggest critique is really rooted in lies about why people are in poverty and the capacity of people who are in poverty. And the biggest critique is that you can't give people something for nothing. It's like, well, obviously, folks are contributing. Like we have a whole term called the working poor. If folks are working, still can't pay for basics. And the second critique is around sort of how the money will be spent, that folks just need to know how to manage money. But I maintain the issue is that folks don't have enough money to manage. And then the third critique is around inflation concerns. If you give everyone more money, then costs just go up. But all economists and folks have explained multiple times that that's just not necessarily the case. And that, the biggest concern of late, though, is that it doesn't solve everything. Like giving folks money doesn't solve for.
Why does every solution have to solve every problem?
But only solutions that help people have to solve every problem.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
It doesn't matter.
Corporate welfare doesn't have to solve every problem.
Tax cuts never don't solve anything. Actually make problems worse. But for some reason, for this thing, I was just in a debate with somebody because they said that $300 a month for 2 years wasn't enough to change infant brain development. So it was a failure.
Wow.
I was like, well, I could have told you $300 to change infant brain development. And it helped with something, but now cash has to change people's brains.
Yeah.
And $300 is not going to change 300 years of structural issues. So
let's actually talk, what happened in Stockton when you did it?
So in Stockton, we gave 150 families $500 a month for 2 years, pre-COVID and during COVID. And what we saw is that the folks who received the guaranteed income were 2 times more likely to go from part-time to full-time work.
Wow.
But the idea being, and that was an insight for me too, was that, it actually costs money to go to work. Gas, your uniform being clean, if your childcare, like it takes money to make money.
Yeah.
And a lot of people just weren't in the workforce or working part-time jobs that couldn't afford to make full-time money, which was mind-blowing. And I think the second big insight that I learned, which was helpful during COVID, which is why the stimulus checks and other things were necessary, was that so many people in our workforce don't have any paid time off. So a lot of these folks took the $500 to take time off work to apply for other jobs, to interview for other jobs, to get better jobs that they were already qualified for, but they couldn't risk losing $100. They couldn't risk taking $200 off their paycheck and missing work. So they got paid time off. So that was just a huge insight. The second big finding was health impacts. We found that folks who received the guaranteed income had a decrease in like stress and other unhealthy things. Or to clinical trials of Prozac. Meaning that not that medicine is important, but maybe some of the stress and anxiety and depression people in our society experience is because they don't have enough for base. It's because they're struggling because they don't know if tomorrow the lights will be on. And the third thing we found was that folks felt more connected to their community. Felt like they were part of something. They felt like they mattered. Like in so much of the qualitative interviews, folks kept talking about the need to pay it back. They need to pay it forward. They need to be like, oh wow, like I want to get more involved in the city now. Like I feel like I'm part of. I want other people to get this too.
But also, I feel like if I wasn't stressed about making rent that month, I might just walk down the street and just smile at my neighbors.
Or volunteer.
Or volunteer, right?
Like
if I'm not stressed at home at night, like I have time to think about doing other things.
Yes, I have time to think. And that's what the recurring theme from this pilot, and now there's 65 pilots, my organization, Marriage for Guaranteed Income overseas. We're actually releasing 25 pilot data, like summary in a couple of weeks. But in every community, in every city, the same theme is true. People are like, I feel like I could breathe. I could breathe. That's why in LA County, the largest guaranteed income program in the country, led by Supervisor Holly Mitchell, who
I love.
First person endorsed me to the governor. I love her. She co-founded one of the co-chairs of Counties for Guaranteed Income, but she named her pilot LA Breathe because she said she was so enamored and listening to the stories from Stockton about how folks said they could breathe. And they've expanded it to another year to include foster youth aging out the system. They have another strand for women fleeing domestic abuse. So it's been amazing to see the work take off, but the findings are generally folks are healthier, folks are happier, folks' incomes are less volatile, and folks are able to participate in the workforce.
Like, well, why are you running for lieutenant governor? I don't want like the answer that you give at all the Cannon Forum. Like, really, like, what is driving you to do this? This is not something that we grew up to aspire to, right? So why do you want to run for statewide office? Why this seat?
Honestly, I had a pretty good thing going for me after mayor.
Yeah.
And I really didn't see running for office in the foreseeable future, but one of my North Stars has always been, if the status quo is okay, just leave it alone. But if you think it's going to make a difference, if your efforts are going to make a tangible difference, you have to do it. So that's why I decided to run for lieutenant governor. I was worried, frankly, about the state, the fact that no one my age can afford to buy a house, the fact that there's all this conversation about billionaires leaving the state. It's really working class people who are making $75K and below who are leaving and going to red states we say we're better than. seeing sort of the trend lines and how every election counties in California are getting a little bit redder, and a little bit redder, and just not really being energized or excited. No disrespect to the folks who are throwing their names in the
Yep.
ring to run. I said, well, you know what? I can't just complain and be on the sidelines, but let me at least offer myself. So that was the first thing. I was like, I think it will make a real difference if I'm in that seat, even though it precludes me from doing other things I enjoy doing. Uh, Number two, I just think the lieutenant governor position is one that hasn't been leveraged in the way it can be leveraged. And, I mean, everything I accomplished as mayor of Stockton, I did in weak mayor city. So I had no powers
Yeah.
actually than any other mayor that came before me or after me. But yet the production was so different. The narrative was so different. The impact was so different. And I think I truly believe that it's the leader in the position and how they create and leverage it. So that was another thing. I was like, wow, we could actually get some stuff done. I'm obsessed with guaranteed income. I'm obsessed with ending poverty. I'm obsessed with this idea of harnessing AI so we all benefit and we all get wealthy from it. And it just feels like lieutenant governor will be a way to do that, to force a conversation in an easier way than not being an elected official. And then lastly, I'm really obsessed with the UCCSU community college system. I think as a first generation college students, they're like real pathways for economic mobility, not just for students, but for the workers and for all the procurement that the university systems do. So I just want to make sure that those systems benefit everyone and that like every young kid in California knows that despite the craziness that's happening nationally, in California, you have a shot.
Yeah.
In California, we believe in you. California, we invest in you. And lastly, I would say, truly, the only reason why I'm running is because of the experience I had in Stockton for 8 years. They counted with 3 Republicans and 3 Democrats, and a city that just declared bankruptcy. We got like some really important stuff done. And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, so I know government can work. I know it
Yeah.
can make an impact. And I think that's what drives me. It's like, no, it sucks, it's hard, it's messy, it's broken. But it can't it doesn't have to be. You can actually get some things done. And I don't know, I guess just growing up in church, I'm always motivated by guilt a little bit too. So I feel like to whom much is given, much is required. You have to at least try to make it better.
But you know what I love that Working Families Party said, and I'm a broken record about this, is that so much money has been invested by billionaires to get us to think that government is just a problem. And it's not that government has served us well, because we've certainly seen government not serve us well, but that actually we should view government as the prize that's worth fighting for, fighting like every inch of our body, because this is the body that governs our community and has the vision of what makes a healthy and balanced community, what that looks like, and what it looks like to even just have a happy society.
Well, I think,
right? Which I talked about with basic income.
Yeah, but I tell people all the time, like, the most progressive thing we can do is demand that government works and delivers services and makes our lives better. Like, to me, that's like what being progressive is. Like, we're not going to give up this. This is the one institution that's ubiquitous, that impacts everyone, and you really can't opt out of. We've seen the power of government to do terrible things to folks' lives, but we've also had some examples of government doing amazing things in folks' lives. And I think in California, with the all blue government, there's no excuse to have the highest poverty rate tied with Louisiana.
Yeah.
That's like unacceptable. There's no excuse to not be able to afford a house or the minimum wage, not being able to support a 1-bedroom apartment anywhere in the state. There's so many things that California could fix that actually have nothing to do with Trump and Myra. They're like California issues. And that's what makes me excited about running for lieutenant governor and running in California, because I probably shouldn't say this, but I'm not as hopeful, honestly, about Washington, D.C. I'm not as hopeful about Congress and the Senate and the executive. I think that's like going to take years of really hard work.
Yeah.
But in California, the 4th largest economy in the world, it's all Democrats.
Yep.
What's the issue? And that's a fight that I'm ready to have.
Yeah. I think California has a responsibility for our country. We're not just the most populous state with 40 million residents. We're the wealthiest. We have more billionaires up in the state and also the highest poverty rate. It's such a state of contradictions, but we can actually afford to do things that other states can't do, right? So when people talk about Medicaid, Medicare for all being a pipe dream, or community-free college being a pipe dream, we can actually afford to do those things. And actually in California, we did. Community college used to be tuition free until 1983 here. And so we've actually made some of these things happen. How can we scale up a program like guaranteed income in California?
So I'm actually been working with Senior Cortesi for the past 3 years. And we're going to get there. We're going to get through one of these years to start with a guaranteed income program for foster youth
Wow.
who are aging out the system. And it's a twofer because we know foster youth, those are our kids. So we have a responsibility to them, even if they're 21, even if they're 18. Like that doesn't mean they still don't need a little bit of help and support, number one. But number two, half of all homeless folks in the state were once foster youth. So it's really solving
Wow.
for two issues with one. And it's not terribly expensive. I think some estimates are $20 million a year will make it so that every single foster youth who ages out of our foster care system for 5 years has a guaranteed income.
Wait, so 50% of our currently unhoused homeless population were foster youth.
We're foster youth at one point.
Wow.
Wow.
I see the stat that the majority of people who live on our streets have been homeless at some point in their childhood. But I didn't realize such a big percentage were foster
huge
youth.
foster youth. And that's on us. Again, we made a decision to take them away from their families. And we said that we would be the family. The state would help them sort of get to adulthood. The state of Michigan actually has done something that we should emulate in California, and I'll be pushing for. They allocated $250 million so that every single mother who's having a baby in Michigan is given a guaranteed income for a year.
Wow.
For 2 years to make sure that no baby in Michigan has to deal with the trauma of poverty.
Wow.
Which is incredible. Michigan.
Yeah, I hadn't heard this.
And they just signed it 2 weeks ago, but they learned it from some of the work happening in California with the Abundant Birth Project in San Francisco, where the amazing researchers and leaders there were sounding the alarm 4 years ago, 5 years ago, about the need to invest in mothers, pregnant mothers, so that they're healthy and have healthy babies. So I think those are the first two sort of low-hanging fruit of things we can do. And then it's always going to be a revenue conversation. But I do believe that through the ballot initiative process, we'll be able to get to a guaranteed income for if not for all Californians, then at least for Californians making 75K or below or 50K or below. But that's one of my secret LG dreams, is to really kind of build the coalition that fights for that and put something like that on the ballot in 28 or 30.
You're one of the youngest, if not youngest candidate running for statewide office right now. You're running because you know that we can't keep doing what we do. What will look different in the next 4 years with you in statewide office?
Let's do 48 because some of these things take time. But with me in statewide office, what will look different is understanding that a statewide elected official understands that California has problems. I'm not wanting to sugarcoat things. I'm wanting to say this is good, but we could get better. So a leadership that's not satisfied, like this idea that we're the fourth largest economy in the world. My question is always, fourth largest economy, who is this benefiting? Because the vast majority of people in California can't afford it, are struggling, etc. Number two, 48 years, you will see an increase in housing production. It's my commitment to make sure the UC CSU community college system builds more housing, not just for students, but also for workers and the folks who work there. Number three, the CSU UC community college system doesn't have a project labor agreement, which we know is a key towards economic mobility for folks who are in the trades and construction. So I'll be fighting like hell to make that happen. Number four, you'll see a real focus on poverty and poverty issues, at least from the lieutenant governor. You will see the lieutenant governor talking about how many folks in the state are in poverty and how, to your point, we have more billionaires than every other country almost in California, and the highest poverty rates high in Louisiana.
Yeah.
Unacceptable. And sort of continues.
It doesn't make sense.
Or it does make sense, right?
Or it does make sense. That's why.
Or it does make sense.
I mean, that is a policy decision. Yeah. It's a policy failure.
It's a policy failure, a policy decision. And the thing about California is that we have so many very progressive people who are very wealthy, who with the right leadership would get behind, like, yeah, how do you make sure that everyone has a shot? I don't need all of this. How do you make sure it gets to the folks who need it?
But that's what I look when you talked about basic income, is that people criticize it, giving money for nothing. But what if we were actually giving people an opportunity to be joyful and happy so that they can then get a full-time job, give back to their community, and just build a happier society? Like, with that, exit the picture. Vision.
It's an investment, folks. It's an investment. We're literally investing in the future. We're investing in prevention, so we don't have to pay. We spend money on things anyway. So either you invest $1,000 a month, say, in guaranteed income on the front end, or you spend millions of dollars on hospital costs, you spend millions of dollars on incarceration. We're paying for it anyway. So this is actually a smart front end investment that leads to more for everyone, because I truly think we have to, in California, model what a society can look like, where everyone has a piece of the pie and the pie is growing.
Yeah.
And I think that it's going to take leadership to get this. So let me close on finish answering the question you posed. I think in 48 years, you'll see a California that is more affordable, that's continuing to lead the nation, not just in defiance of Trump, which is important, but in modeling what the future looks like. What does a pluralistic, multiracial democracy look like? And a state that really understands that platitudes isn't enough. Like Marxism isn't enough. Like people have to be able to work in a way that allows them to pay for basics. People need housing. And also I think California, especially given all the ways in which the big ugly bill has messed up healthcare premiums and subsidies, has to continue to push to model like, no, this is what a healthcare as a right could look like for a state government.
And I love how you frame, like, a lot of these issues were happening long before Trump walked into the White House. I mean, in 2016, I remember seeing the stat for the first time that, 1 out of every 10 CSU student was homeless and living in their car while going to school. Like, how is that even remotely acceptable?
That's my thing. Like, how are we okay with that?
Yeah.
As leaders, it's like, oh, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
10% of kids who you told to work hard in high school and go to college sleep in their cars. Schools should have enough housing for their students.
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing?
And I served on the school board at a young age in San Francisco. And I remember when I learned that in Sacramento, that they actually look at third grade literacy test scores and reading test scores to determine how much money they need to put into the prison system, decades from now. And I think it's crazy that in the last 4 years, we have built 23 state prisons and only 1 UC and 3 CSUs. So we're almost determining the institution that we expect young Californians to end up in. And they're both expensive.
And the prisons are more expensive. And that's what gets me, because we always have these conversations about cost.
Yeah.
And cost. And like I tell people all the time, I was mayor of a city that was bankrupt.
Yeah.
You're not going to find anyone more measly than me when it comes to public dollars.
Yeah.
But that goes on everything. So no, I don't think public dollars should be spent on costly, ineffective incarceration.
Yeah.
Over education. It's morally wrong, but it's also financially wrong. And I think the older I get, the more I realize things that are morally wrong are also very costly. Like, we're also not saving money despite the lies people say. Like, it's not cheap. Like, we're losing money and losing a piece of our soul.
Yeah.
So hopefully, as lieutenant governor, I want to also make sure that we don't lose sight of the morality that should be at the heart of our politics. This idea of the dignity of every human being, this idea that we may not be perfect, but we have to be focused on progress. The idea that no one's dismissed, that no community doesn't matter, that every community deserves clean water, like every community needs clean air, that everyone deserves a floor, that no one should have nothing. And I just think that some people think that's radical, but for me, that feels very basic.
Yeah.
That's what I'm teaching my kids.
So I'm going to pivot because I want our viewers to get to know you a little bit. So anytime you get out your phone, and my question is, what is your top played artist on Apple or Spotify?
It's J. Cole, because I've been listening to J. Cole since I was in college. And it's K-pop Demon Hunters. My 3 kids are obsessed with it. But there's some good songs on there. There's a song that's called, like, Golden. It's like a slow song that goes nothing but what it sounds like. It's like a beautiful ballad about, like, coming into your own and leaving shame behind. And then we also listen a lot to Takedown, because I think they like.
Yeah. As a Korean American, it is amazing to me to see young children that aren't Korean listening to K-pop and watching K-dramas.
Oh, it's like the biggest, like, they're going to watch TV. They're 6'4" They're going to watch TV on Saturday and Sundays. It's K-pop every weekend. K-pop Demon Hunters. Like, my 2-year-old walks around singing Golden and Takedown.
I remember a couple of years ago, I was on the phone with our good friend, now Congresswoman Latina Simon, and we were just chatting. I think it was during shutdown, so we're all like stuck in our homes, and all I could hear was her daughter Layla yelling in the background, "They got robbed! They got robbed!" And I was just like, Tifa, I was like, "What is going on?" And she goes, "Oh, we're watching the Grammys, and BTS didn't win, I think, Album of the Year." And I just remember my mind just exploded. Like, never in my life did I expect that a non-Korean young girl would be rooting so hard for a Korean boy fan, right?
Have you been to KCON in LA?
No.
I've go to KCON every year. Packed. The crypto arena, fully packed with kids of all nationalities, all races,
Yeah.
singing K-pop songs.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Okay. What is your favorite movie that takes place in California?
My favorite movies are like, Boys in the Hood. Easy, yeah. Yep.
Oh. What is the favorite thing that you are either listening to or reading right now?
I just read Kamala Harris 107 Days.
How was that?
It was so weird because it's not that long ago,
Yeah.
but it read like a different world. It read like a
Yeah.
different place.
Yeah.
Particularly reading the chapter about convention.
Yeah.
I was at convention.
Yeah.
I remember the feeling of palpable joy and
Yeah.
anticipation and almost inevitability, and even where we are now. So that was actually it was a better read than I expected it to be, honest.
Okay. What is the sports team that you are ride or die for?
Lakers, I can't lie. Oh no, I know. I lost some votes, but I'm not good at this line. I had an answer ready of all the teams, but I love the Lakers. But can I give a shout out to a couple other teams? I love the Kings too, because I brought their G League team to Stockton, so I'm a big King. I have like 8 Kings jerseys. And the Warriors, I love Steph Curry.
What is one of the weirdest or strangest requests that you got from your constituent as city councilor or mayor of Stockton?
Not weird, but I was on city council, even more so than I was mayor. People really wanted me at their birthday parties.
Okay.
Like their 7-year-old daughter's birthday party.
Yeah.
Kings, yeah. But not like big, like my 53rd. It was just like random numbers I wanted, and they wanted like a certificate. Yeah, so.
What was most unexpected about being in office for you that surprised you the most?
Both how easy and how difficult it was to get anything done. Easy because sometimes I would just say something, like an idea, and people would just act like it was law. And difficult because sometimes like this is not that hard. Why are we sitting at a third meeting about this? Why are we still discussing it? Why is it taking so long to get the consensus? So that paradox always struck me. I'm like, wow, you could get things done easily, but sometimes it's also really hard, and oftentimes at the same time.
Michael, thank you so much for joining us. I'm so excited about your candidacy, and it is going to be fun to just watch a young candidate with energy and vision run for statewide office here in California. We need it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your support as well.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's our show. If it helped, please share it with one person who needs the plain English version of this important topic. And join our Discord to keep the conversation going and to suggest topics for future episodes. The link is in the show notes. And follow us, California Working Families Party, on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to do more, DM us and we'll connect you with a local WP member rep to help organize your community or neighborhood. We got more information in the show notes. Rate and follow the show so you don't miss the next episode. I'm Jane Kim, and thank you for listening.